Hello everybody and welcome along to today's video where I'm going to be reviewing the only episode of 2016 Christmas special, The Return of Doctor Mysterio. So this episode, as I said, is the only episode that's aired this year, a superhero theme for an episode set in New York on Christmas-ish. That was the whole idea behind it being a Christmas special, I guess. And going into it, I wasn't quite sure how... I was optimistic, but I wasn't quite sure how it was going to sort of pan out, really. I mean, seeing the clips and the trailers and the pictures and stuff, I was sort of like... maybe it's not going to be quite for me, really. I've never been too much of one for superheroes and all that kind of thing. It's just, I've just never really watched superhero movies and that sort of stuff, so I thought maybe it wouldn't appeal to me too much. And I thought that watching it overall, it was good, it was okay, it was solid, maybe a sort of 6, 7 out of 10, but it was nothing amazing, really. It was nothing sort of particularly spectacular. I think it helps that it was on Christmas Day. It probably makes people more favourable towards it because it aired on Christmas, and you can kind of use the Christmas excuse as to why maybe it was lacking in some areas. But I'll go into more detail, but overall I would sort of sum it up as a solid piece of Christmas fun and enjoyment. But if it was during a series, it'd probably be a bit more average. So this episode opens with a nice, quite long pre-title sequence with the Doctor meeting a young version of Grant who becomes the superhero. And they have a whole nice little sequence about him thinking that the Doctor's Santa Claus and all this kind of stuff, and then him accidentally eating the little crystal and gets all the superpowers and developing all that. Somewhat I sort of felt a little bit of a sort of similarities to the 11th hour in the beginning of that scene where you've got that young kid who's sort of being influenced by this magical figure of the Doctor, and it's changed their whole life in that sense, like it did with Amy back then. I know it's different because it isn't a companion now, but I could just sort of see those parallels a little bit there. And it's also worth mentioning that it'll link to the Angels Take Manhattan as well, with the Doctor seemingly finally deciding to come back and try and fix all the messed up time disturbances and stuff that he caused in the Angels Take Manhattan, which all got a bit of a mess and plot holes and yeah, I won't go there. But it was nice to link. It was nice to link that into the episode. Seeing as we're back in New York, it sort of seemed an obvious thing to try and link it to. I thought, which was good. And a lot of the early sort of, I found personally watching it, certainly watching it the second time, the first half of the episode or so, I didn't really find that great. Really, I mean, I quite liked that pre-title sequence, but then past that, there was just a lot of kind of average scenes, all this, the mysterious stuff that was meant to be mysterious and interesting, but that wasn't really that interesting because of the aliens, and plot wasn't that great. I mean, I'll come on to it a bit later on with that, but I just thought it wasn't that sort of engaging, interesting, exciting. It was sort of, I mean, already as I've said, I wasn't that bothered about the whole it's a superhero thing, which clearly was meant to be one of the main things of it, is look, superhero, this is amazing. We're recreating Clark Kent and Lois Lane from way back when. This is amazing, Superman, all this kind of stuff. But for me, that wasn't too I wasn't too bothered about that, and so then it just ends up as a sort of, I love Peter Capaldi in this episode, I will say that. I mean, obviously I love Peter Capaldi as the Doctor anyway, but I thought he was brilliant in this episode, or just some of the random things that he was doing, like wandering around at night eating sushi and investigating. It's just gloriously random things like that, or taking a burger around with him to give to the aliens, but then he didn't actually want it. And it was just these little funny things that he does brilliantly as the Doctor, and I absolutely love it when he's like that. So that was certainly one of the highlights of the episode, was to have Peter back doing a whole proper full episode. That was brilliant. But some of those other early scenes where we find out about these brains in jars and all that kind of thing, and the stuff with Mr. Brock and all that, I just kind of wasn't that bothered, really. I mean, it's just the standard sort of plot set-up stuff that you do, but then it didn't really pay off that much. We'll get on to that. There was also the fairly, you had to suspend your disbelief quite a bit with the whole why doesn't Lucy realise that Grant is the superhero ghost guy? I mean, it was a little bit of a push to be able to say, yeah, she clearly never realised that until the end, blah, blah, blah. But I'll forgive her that, forgive Moffat at that, because clearly that was the idea with the whole superhero plotline, and it's set up earlier on, kind of almost saying that at the very beginning, where you have the young Grant reading the comic, and the Doctor saying, "Oh, look, they're the same," and he's just like, "Yeah, everybody knows that." And yeah, and yet Lois Lane doesn't in that one, and it's sort of just recreating that storyline, I think. So that kind of, you can make it work with that, I would say. And one of the other scenes that I quite enjoyed sort of midway through the episode was the one where Lucy does the interview with the Doctor using Mr. Huffle, the really interesting and very irritating little sort of toy thing that feels pain, I think she said, and makes that horrific noise when you squeeze it every time. And that was just quite entertaining to sort of have the Doctor being forced to tell the truth, essentially, because he can't bear the noise of this screeching little toy. And she's quite a good sort of investigative journalist. She actually asks the right questions, and the Doctor actually acknowledges that she's quite clever. Apart from noticing that Grant and the Ghost are the same person. But it's nice to have a fairly clever person in that sort of role, because often they're just left being a bit stupid and not really doing much. So that was good. Now, production-wise, I've seen a lot of people saying that the CGI was rubbish on the whole New York skyline. I didn't think it was that bad. I thought it was... There are a couple of shots, I will admit, particularly the one that we saw in the clip before the Back at Children in Need, where they hadn't improved that from that clip. And there are just a couple of shots when you've got the ghost sort of walking in, where you look in the background, and it does look pretty poor CGI of the background in New York. I will admit that. But overall, there are quite a few nice shots there. The final shot, go back and have a look at the very final shot. I think that looks really good. Of just this nice sort of blue hue on the skyline of New York, with the TARDIS flying out towards us. If you just watch those last sort of 3 or 4 seconds back, I think that's a really good piece of sort of CGI and work that they've done there. So that was good. And overall, I did think there was quite good CGI in there. Also, all the stuff with opening up the heads and all that kind of thing, that was all done very well as well, and it looked fairly sort of smooth and sort of just worked, I felt. So there are the odd moment, but overall I thought production-wise they've done a very good job of it. Now, one of the other big things that we've got to mention about the Return of Doctor Mysterio is the return of Nardole, the mighty Nardole of 2015 Christmas Special. He was back, and he was quite good. I thought he was better than a lot of people. I think a lot of people did admit in the end, I saw on social media, that he actually was a little bit better than maybe they thought he would be. I know there was a lot of, oh, what's the point of Nardole? He's pretty terrible. Why on earth is he coming back? But then I just quite enjoyed him. He was just a nice... Yes, he is a bit of a comedy character, but that's just... that I don't have any problem with that, and I enjoyed having that little sort of comedy moment. And it was good that Moffat actually gave a reasonable reason, A, why he got his head back, and B, why he's there. He got his head back because the Doctor was lonely and he needed to sort of have a friend because River's gone and all this sort of stuff. And I thought that was enough. Yes, I know some people say, oh, we need more explanation, blah, blah, blah. But I felt that was enough of an explanation as to why Nardole was brought back and why he's here now. He's sort of been, and he's been trained up as well quite nicely as sort of a, he's able to pilot the TARDIS and all this kind of thing. I thought, you just sort of think that often that the Doctor would quite like to have someone like that who can sort of pilot the TARDIS for him and help him out and just be quite friendly and nice with the Doctor there. So obviously towards the end of the episode he does kind of become the more general companion guy of just, oh, what's this, what's happening there, please explain the plot to me guy, towards the end of the episode, which is a scene I quite like and I'll get onto, but yeah, it did kind of turn into that. And there was just a gloriously random moment where you when Nardole materialises the TARDIS and then the Doctor goes in and we see Nardole all kitted out in this ancient sort of somewhere or other, I can't remember where, gear, where he's ruled somewhere in the 12th century. And it was just one of the most, just that, the imagery, the shot that you have of Nardole sort of smiling with his stupid hats and the hanging down things in the TARDIS, it was just sort of like so gloriously random. I'll put the picture up, and I was just like, oh wow, I just thought this is just brilliant. I just love this. This is just so random and so Doctor Who and so brilliant. And I just thought it was just a really odd moment, but I just sort of loved it really, to be honest. So overall, I did think Nardole was good, and I'm positive about him for the next series. I mean, I'm going to do a video about Series 10 trailer tomorrow, so look out for that, and I'll talk more about Nardole. But I enjoyed him in this episode, and I thought he was worth being in this episode, and that I think he'll be good for Series 10 as well. Now, I felt that the episode certainly got better towards the end of it, through the second half of it, when we get the Doctor onto this spaceship that turns into that's actually a bomb thing. And I just really enjoyed when I rewatched it, I just really enjoyed the scene with the Doctor and Nardole and Mr. Sim on the TV screen, where they're like, the whole sort of their plan is being explained and everything. And I just loved sort of how they worked that scene and how Peter was acting and sort of playing that scene, and then the scene after that where he just sort of says, where he starts smashing all the buttons and everything, and I just thought that was absolutely sort of brilliant, classic Doctor line sort of thing. And earlier on when he sort of congratulates them on a brilliant plan, well done, why couldn't we have more plans like that, us good guys, human guys. It was just, I just loved all that scene there towards the end. I just thought that was brilliant, and sort of that just felt like proper Doctor Who, proper Peter Capaldi as the Doctor. That really worked for me, I felt. And actually, talking about that part of it, the whole plot, the actual plot of the story, it was a little bit all over the place. I mean, I did quite like, as I said, as was explained, this whole plan about how they're going to do a sort of a blow up New York, which will then force all the leaders, the world into mass panic, and then it'll force all the world leaders into the Harmony Shoal buildings because they're safe, and then they'll come and take all the brains of all the world leaders and swap them with all the Harmony Shoal people, or whatever they're actually called. and then suddenly they'll be in complete control of the Earth and able to colonise. It was quite a good idea, but then it was kind of defeated in no time, and by the superhero and everything, so it was all sort of a little bit resolved in no time in the end, which was quite a little bit. I mean, clearly that plot wasn't really the focus of this episode. The focus of this episode was, it's a superhero, he's equal to the Doctor, he's the main hero of this episode, not really the Doctor, and that was the whole idea behind it, and the relationship between him and Lucy, and that was what was really leading the episode more than this alien invasion plot, which was interesting, fairly different to some of the more other ones that we've had before, but it was still just an alien invasion plot, essentially. So that clearly wasn't meant to be the focus. I mean, maybe it would have been maybe the episode would have been better if it was the focus, because it was quite an interesting plot, as I said. But that wasn't how it worked out, and I thought that maybe that was a little bit detrimental to the episode. It's hard to say, because you're kind of trying to imagine how it would be like without that. If you took out the superhero sort of element of it there and just had the Doctor save the day at the end, obviously you'd have to find a way around the end bit where he's stuck on the exploding ship. I'm not quite sure what they'd do to solve that, but they'd find something. But if for that plot, really the superhero doesn't do too much. They're very much kind of separate plots, really. It's just sort of coincidental that actually these aliens, oh, why don't we take the superhero dude, because he's really strong and really kind of he'd be great to lead us because he's got all these superpowers and stuff like that. That was literally it. It was almost like that wasn't really their plan until he suddenly appeared, so they were very much sort of two different stories stuck together and just connected at the end by the superhero Grant, or the Ghost, saving the day at the end, and the Doctor getting involved in both sides as well. It was, yeah, so that was probably a bit of a sort of letdown. If you dig into the episode a bit more, you can kind of see that it's all, there's a little bit of sort of two plots going on, not very well linked together, all this kind of thing that maybe isn't so great. But for Christmas Day, I think you've got to forgive them, frankly. Because that's what it has to be. On Christmas Day, it needs to be light-hearted. It needs to have a little bit of a Christmas link with Snow. I mean, to be honest, this was barely any link to Christmas at all. Just the whole, you watch superhero movies at Christmas, and the first scene, which is set at Christmas, I think. But that was about it for anything Christmassy, really. But then you've got to have it light-hearted and sort of have something a bit different all over the place with superheroes and that kind of stuff. So I think that because it was a Christmas episode, it works a bit better, I think. As I said before, you can get away with it a little bit more. And one brilliant line towards the very end that I just thought was brilliant was when you had the Ghost and Lucy have kissing and stuff and taking the whole massive bomb away. The Doctor turns around, there's Mr. Brock with his gun, points straight at him, and Mr. Brock just goes, "You think this is over?" And the Doctor's like, "Yep." Blow up your gun with a sonic screwdriver, and bang, you're all done. And it was just perfect sort of comic timing of this whole series. You think this is over, and yep, bang, and the gun's gone. It was I did laugh out loud at that scene at that moment. It was just absolutely brilliant. I loved it. It was one of my favourite moments of the episode. It was so random and so sort of tiny moment, but I just thought it was brilliant, really. So that just random brilliant moment there. And then the only other main thing to talk about in this episode is the link that we had to the 2015 Christmas special, The Husbands of River Song, and the whole link to River Song and the 24 Years Under William and this kind of thing, which I thought was interesting that Stephen decided to pick up on this and kind of make this like a sort of, not quite a sequel to that, but kind of a link to that episode, certainly, which I'd seen some people say was a bad decision. We'll have a think about that in a moment, but I mean, obviously we have the thought of it's been 24 years or something, so his Doctor's lost all of his 24 years under William, essentially they've all passed. That's how long that he's lost all that time he had with River has passed now, and that's it. And then the sort of just the moments at the end where he's all a bit sad about sort of not being able to be with River anymore, because I think essentially he's kind of reached the end of his meetings with River. They sort of, from his point of view, completed their kind of timeline. I think, from what I remember, and sort of because we've passed the whole 24 years of Durillium, and the Doctor's gone through all that. And then pretty much after Durillium, I think fairly soon, River becomes an archaeologist and then goes to the library, and that's it. So I think the Doctor's just a bit sad because he's probably not going to see River again, because that's kind of their timeline's passed. But then I've seen some people talking about how it's a little bit odd to have the 12th Doctor mourning so much for sort of River and being so sad about River, when really it was all about the 11 and River. It would make more sense and less sense at the same time to have him mourning Clara a bit more, because obviously Clara was a much more important character to the 12th Doctor than River Song has been. River Song clearly was more important to the 11th Doctor probably than Clara was, but certainly Clara and 12 was much more there was much more going on there than there was with River and 12. Just obviously the 12th Doctor can't remember Clara much, probably not anymore. I mean, I think he can a little bit. I think that the Doctor can kind of remember, has a bit of a memory of Clara, sort of has put two and two together with the face on the TARDIS and all that kind of thing. So he's sort of aware, but he doesn't feel any kind of pain about it or any real sadness. Whereas he does about River, because he's finished his time with her, as it were. So I can kind of see why that's been put in there, but I can also see the point of also being kind of, it's been a year, it sort of feels like that was all, that should have been and done with now, we should have started something afresh. And it is kind of being finished off now, but it sort of, this would work well when you binge watch Doctor Who and watch these two like back to back, and you see, oh yeah, there's the connections, oh that time's passed, I say, oh yeah, that all makes sense. But then when you watch it a year apart, it doesn't quite fit as well, I think, maybe. So that was interesting, and I also liked the Doctor's little thought at the end about how everything ends, everything has to end. That's all a bit, and it's sad, but then everything begins again, and that's happy. Be happy, essentially, he said. So I thought that was an interesting kind of thinking about, this is kind of the end. Despite seemingly Last Christmas was the end, a kind of ending point, it feels like this is the sort of ending point of the Doctor and River, after we've had the end of the Doctor and Clara, then a Doctor and River, and now it's time to go off on new adventures. Nardol's joined the crew, and now it's time to go out for something new and join Bill the companion, the new companion, Pearl Mackie, as Bill Potts. That whole new sort of dynamic that's going to be coming, and just sort of foreshadowing this whole new things that are going to be beginning. I mean, hopefully that isn't... I saw some people say, oh, is that indicating that Peter Capaldi is going to regenerate at the end of the series? Personally, I think it's a bit of an odd time, and talking about new beginnings now seems a bit too early for that, so I don't think that's a reference to a possible regeneration. I still have no idea whether he's actually going to leave at the end of Series 10 or not. No one knows at all, really. Rumour has it that he has made a decision either way. It seems logical that he's made a decision either way at this stage, but we have no idea what it is. So I don't think that's a reference to that. I think it's just a sort of foreshadowing-y reference to the whole new companion thing that's coming up for Series 10, which I'm really excited for. And then it was just nice, those final few shots of the Doctor in the TARDIS kind of unbuttoning his sort of top of his shirt and everything, just kind of letting it all out, as it were, having a little bit of a sort of sad frown, and then just finishing with a smile, as just to say, sort of, River's done, that whole story's done, it's a bit sad, but let's go off and do something new, some new adventures, something new, brand new. I think that was really good, and really is a positive message to give out to the sort of the viewers of, this is all new. And I mean, I'll talk about it more tomorrow with the trailer and everything, but just to quick mention the tagline for Series 10, see the universe anew. That's brilliant. Well done, BBC guys. Because it just uses new. New is such a key word to keep people interested and keep people wanting to watch. If you say something is new and different and exciting, people will watch, rather than same old, just the Doctor and Clara all in the TARDIS. As much as I love Series 9, that was a bad marketing decision. So it's good that we're going for a whole this is new theme, and yeah, so I'll talk about that more tomorrow though. And there you go, that's about it from this video. That's my review of the Return of Doctor Mysterio, the one and only episode of 2016. Maybe because it's the only episode, it's a little bit disappointing. I mean, it wasn't brilliant. It was a solid Christmas special. I would say I preferred the last two Christmas specials, Last Christmas and the Hunter River Song. I preferred to this one, but I still thought it was a good solid episode. Yeah, just it helped by being at Christmas, just your average Christmas episode, but maybe a little bit disappointing because it was the only episode of the year. But then on the positive side, we've got a whole 12 episode series to look forward to in just a few months' time. So it really is looking more positive and more up now for Doctor Who in general, that we've got lots to look forward to. This is only the beginning. This is clearly just a bit of a stopgap episode, really. Just kind of trying to link up, cut off the ending of River Song and all that sort of stuff from the Husband River Song, just to end all that and begin anew for Series 10. So thank you very much for watching this video, guys. Remember to like and subscribe. Let me know what you thought of this episode, and I will see you again tomorrow for my analysis of the Doctor Who Series 10 trailer. Goodbye.